Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, to answer a couple of questions that Senator Petersen brought up, the confidentiality part was actually built in to protect the landowners themselves, right? Their information as part of the negotiations and conversations when they were contacted to potentially find a voluntary easement. It wasn't protecting anybody with the landowners. That's how that's structured. And that, if you read above it, I think you can see it's all linked together, Senator. Economic feasibility, to answer your question on that too. So who makes the determination? The way the bill is structured is, and again, I've been saying this from day one, the way the bill is structured is prior to them even going to request the authority to utilize eminent domain, they have to prove to the IUC that they've exhausted all potential voluntary easement parcels in the corridor. I've heard some stuff in the chamber today, or in the hearing today. This does not expand. This bill does not expand the number of folks in the state of Iowa that would be impacted by eminent domain. Actually, it does the other thing. It ensures that if you encounter a landowner that does not wish to have a conversation or enter into a voluntary easement agreement with the company building the infrastructure. And again, we need to talk about the perspective. This exists in code section 479B. So what does 479B encompass, right? It encompasses this list of hazardous liquid materials. So it encompasses crude oil, refined petroleum products, liquefied petroleum gases, and hydrous ammonia, liquid fertilizers, liquefied carbon dioxide, alcohols, and coal slurries. So the hazardous liquid pipeline section of the Iowa Code, while our conversation is specifically being targeted here today on carbon sequestration pipeline, this bill provides remedies for all those sort of pipeline infrastructure projects. The nexus for our conversation here actually starts with the Dakota Access Pipeline, right? It was built in northwest Iowa, and it traveled 200 miles or so, and it led to a Supreme Court case challenging the ability to utilize eminent domain. So as we look at this, not looking at it in a vacuum is important from my perspective, looking at finding solutions for all hazardous liquid pipelines, and give the power back to the landowners to have the ability to say no, and give the power to the pipeline companies building that infrastructure, the ability to find voluntary easements of willing landowners outside of those corridors. That's what this bill does. This bill does not expand in that voluntary easement corridor, which is what it's called in the bill, voluntary easement corridor. It does not expand the ability for those companies to utilize eminent domain. They have to find voluntary easement paths around folks that don't engage in conversation or, benefit financially, monetarily from that easement. But it allows those companies to find landowners that want to benefit financially from that easement and have the ability to stitch together voluntary easement corridors to build infrastructure. This is not a new idea. Iowa, I firmly believe we've regulated ourselves into this position by limiting access to the notice corridor only, right? Other states either have no notice corridor provisions or they allow variations from the corridor to do just what this bill does, find willing participants and landowners to engage in voluntary easements with. Again, I've referenced this project numerous times. Pipeline was built through Kansas and Colorado, delivering jet fuel to Denver International Airport, about 240 miles of pipe. That pipeline was constructed in those two states that have similar regulatory requirements this bill creates, and they used eminent domain 0 times. And we've had a lot of conversations in this Capitol over the last 4 years about potential solutions. And I'm going to refer back to what was Senate File 2897, introduced 2 years ago. The House file component was also introduced at that point in time, passed out of the House, sent over to the Senate, and that bill created a 90% threshold. What that bill did was it said once a pipeline company achieved 90% voluntary easements, they were able to utilize eminent domain across the last 10% of those parcels, right? And again, what you're doing there is you are simply saying those 10% of folks, it's okay to eminent domain them. It's okay to roll right over them. The bill that's in front of us today does not do that. The bill that's in front of us today requires those pipeline companies to continue to seek voluntary easements in the voluntary easement corridor. So it adds additional protections. The bill also puts the keys for the conversations in the hand of landowners. You have the right to say no. If a landman comes to your door and you don't talk anymore, you tell them no. You have the right to say that. They can't contact you. They can offer to contact you by phone, by a certified letter, by mail. And then you have the ability to restart those negotiations if you change your mind. Again, we're putting those keys back in the hand of landowners. At the end of the day, the economic impact of this project, I've heard this conversations, and I've been really clear in my messaging. CO2 has been used for enhanced oil recovery in this country for over 20 years. There are right now over 200 billion barrels of oil that can be recovered in this country in states like Wyoming, North Dakota, Texas, Permian Basin. Wyoming has about 3 billion barrels alone. So the ability for this product to open up additional low carbon ethanol markets for Iowa's farmers, which we've heard today are struggling, and additional markets for enhanced oil recovery, which aligns ourselves with President Trump's goals for energy dominance in this country, I think are essential to Iowa farmers. We raised a record number of bushels of corn this last year. Iowa farmers need to find additional access to markets. This bill protects property owners' rights. It allows property owners to exercise their property owners' rights if they wish to enter into a voluntary easement. It allows property owners to say no. Forces companies to go through an exhaustive process to find a path around. It allows the IUC at the end to make that determination whether the pipeline company has exhausted all those potential options. I see this as an extension from conversations we've had under the dome here for the last 4 years. This bill, again, not unique to Iowa. This methodology, this approach is not unique to Iowa, but it provides us a solution and a path forward. I'll be voting, signing off